once you become an adult, say you go to a party or say you go on a first date and you meet somebody new for the first time, one of the first things they're going to ask you is like, oh, so what do you do for work? Where do you work? And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but for better or worse, whatever it is that you're doing, that becomes like people's first impression of you. Hey guys, if you like the content on this episode today, I want you to go and click the subscribe button so that we can make sure that you get notified for all of our future content as well, because I've been putting out new episodes like this 3 times a week, all packed with super valuable investment banking recruiting advice that's going to help you with your own recruiting process. Okay, so go ahead and click subscribe now, and let's dive into today's topic. So today I want to talk about what is so great about investment banking anyway, right? What is the big deal? Why do so many people want to go into investment banking? Why is it so hard to get in as a result of that? And is investment banking really worth the 60, 70, 80, 100 hours a week of work that you have to put in, right? If you do become an investment banking analyst. And so a lot of people have questions about that. And so I just want to talk about that a little bit. So to be honest, obviously I'm biased, right? I think investment banking is one of the best places you could possibly start your career. Obviously, I myself started my career in investment banking, and I haven't regretted it since, right? I think it's done a lot for me personally, not just because I run Wall Street Mastermind today, but even for all the jobs that I had after banking, before I started Wall Street Mastermind. I don't think I would have been, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today if I hadn't started my career in banking. So what are some of the benefits, what are some of the most common reasons for why people want to get into banking? Let's dive into these one by one. Okay, so the first one, obviously, the most obvious one is the high pay, right? There's no ifs or buts about it. The compensation in investment banking is very, very attractive, right? As a first-year analyst, if you're getting into the top bank, I'm talking about like a bulge bracket or a elite boutique or a middle market bank. If you're getting a top bank, as a first-year analyst coming out of school, you can make on average around $125,000 to $130,000 first year out of school, right? If you go to an elite boutique, which tends to pay a little bit higher, some firms even pay $150K. I have a client that's going to Centerview, and he says that his first year pay, including his sign-on bonus and everything, is going to be up to $200,000, and that's his first year out of school. You compare that to the average college grad in the United States today, where they're making around $50,000. That's a statistic that you can go and look up, right? The average college grad makes $50,000 a year. So you're making anywhere from 2.5 to 3 times, possibly even up to 4 times what your fellow classmates or the other people in your class would be making. And that's just crazy, right? And so that's definitely probably, a lot of people won't admit this, but that's one of the first reasons why people are attracted to banking. Now, also, it's not just your first year salary, but if your first year salary starts from a higher place, then pretty much for the rest of your career, your earnings potential is going to be a lot higher because everything is anchored. Every subsequent raise that you get, or even when you switch jobs and your new employer is giving you an offer, they're anchoring their compensation package off of what you were already making in your most recent job, right? And so even if we made a simplifying assumption and said, okay, no matter where you start, your salary is going to grow by 3% a year for the rest of your career, or grow by 5% a year for the rest of your career. Make whatever assumption you want. Due to the law of compounding, if you're compounding at 5% a year and you're starting at 150K versus you're compounding at 5% a year starting at 50K, that gap is only going to become wider and wider over time, right? And so that's the first thing, is where you start is really, really important. And they've actually done a study on this at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, where this is academic research, so it's based on a very large sample size of data. And basically they found that people who started their career in investment banking on average made anywhere from $1.5 to I think $5 million plus, more than their classmates. Okay, who went to the exact same school, but graduated and did something else, right? So that's a lot of money, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is prestige, right? Now, prestige, being able to say you worked at a firm like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan or one of these, household names where, everybody knows that it's really, really hard to break in. everybody knows that these firms only accept about 1% or less of the applicant pool. A lot of people care about that, right? Because it becomes a part of your identity, right? Like once right now, while you're still in school, maybe like anytime you meet a stranger, one of the first things they might ask you is, oh, where do you go to school? And that kind of is a part of your identity, right? Like if you go to a school like Harvard or Princeton or Yale or Stanford or Berkeley or whatever, you could probably answer that question with a lot of pride, right? And you're not ashamed of it, right? But if you go to some crappy no-name school that nobody's ever heard of, you probably hate answering that question, because every time you answer that question, people look kind of confused and they're like, oh, what is that? Or where is that school? And you have to like kind of sheepishly explain that. Like it's kind of like that, but once you become an adult, say you go to a party or say you go on a first date and you meet somebody new for the first time, one of the first things they're going to ask you is like, oh, so what do you do for work? Where do you work? And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but for better or worse, whatever it is that you're doing, that becomes like people's first impression of you, right? That becomes like that, what they associate you with, right? Like, oh, are you a successful person? Or are you a capable person? Are you like, the cream of the crop? Or are you, I don't know, I don't want to pick on any profession, like, are you a janitor or something? Or, do you work at McDonald's, right? Like, that's not saying like, this seems like a shallow thing, but at the end of the day, how you feel about yourself as a person, whether you have an identity that you can be proud of, it matters, right? And also how other people think about you and how other people view you, it matters, because it affects the opportunities that you have. It'll even affect, the type of person that you end up being with for the rest of your life, like your life partner, right? When you're trying to find your husband or wife or whatever, like this stuff matters, right? And so prestige is another big thing, right? Exit opportunities is probably the third one that we'll hear of a lot. And so what this means is, coming out of investment banking, you actually have a lot more career opportunities than you would going into investment banking. Investment banking is one of the few jobs where you go in there, you don't really get pigeonholed, right? Because if you graduate and you go into, say, accounting, you're probably going to end up being an accountant for the rest of your life, right? You graduate, you go into law, you're probably going to end up being a lawyer for the rest of your life. You graduate, you become an engineer, you're probably going to be an engineer for the rest of your life. Like whatever it is that you choose to do, that first job that you pick when you graduate, a lot of times that dictates, it kind of becomes like relatively set in stone in terms of the path that you're going to start going down, right? And so that can be a scary thing, especially for someone who's a 20 or 21-year-old, and you don't really know what you want to do for the rest of your life. I know I didn't know. One of the biggest reasons why I wanted to get into investment banking, like yes, the high pay, that was really attractive, the prestige, that was great, but also I knew that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was passionate about yet, right? So I wanted to buy myself a little bit of time, and I knew that, hey, by doing banking, I'm buying myself an extra 2 years after I graduate to really figure out what I want to do. And then after I come out of banking, whatever it is that I decide on, I will most likely be able to go into that field, right? This is like any field within business, pretty much you're going to be eligible for coming out of banking. Even a lot of fields outside of business, like I've seen people go from banking into, becoming product managers, and which is, more on the tech side of things. Like that's even possible too. Like any job that requires you to have really strong analytical abilities, they will love to hire bankers, right? The only things you probably won't be eligible for are like super specialized professions, like, becoming a doctor or becoming a lawyer, where you have to go to school for that, right? Or, maybe becoming a programmer. But even then, I have friends that went from banking and they became a programmer afterwards. You just have to go and learn how to program, right? But regardless, exit opportunities is a huge thing. And also, not just the flexibility of it, but also some of the most high-paying and most exclusive jobs out there will only hire exclusively from investment banking. And this includes most of the buy-side jobs, like private equity jobs, venture capital jobs, hedge fund jobs. Probably 85 to 90% of the people that get hired into those industries come from investment banking. Like they started their career in investment banking. So if you want to become an investor in any way, shape, or form, the best place to start, or maybe possibly even the only place you should be trying to start your career, is probably in investment banking, right? So that's on the exit opportunity side of things. Let's keep going. Learning opportunity. This is another thing. It's like people always say, like the amount of learning you will do in just your first 2 years in investment banking is probably more than what most people will learn in other, say, regular 9 to 5 jobs over 5 years or 10 years even, right? Because yes, you're working a lot more. You're working 70, 80, 90, 100 hours a week, and other people are only working 40 hours. So that's a part of it, right? But the other part of it too is also the type of work that you're doing, right? And this maybe kind of like ties into the next benefit. So I'll just talk about these two together, which is the unparalleled responsibilities that you get. Like as a 21-year-old, as a first-year analyst, you are literally going to be advising, not single-handedly, of course, but as part of a team. You're a part of a team that's going to be advising the CEOs and CFOs of some of the most successful companies in the world. We're talking about Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Or sometimes even if they're not and they're private companies, but like some of the most successful startups in the world, you are going to be advising the C-level executives of these companies on some of the most strategic projects that they will ever work on. Or sometimes these are some of the biggest deals or transactions that they'll ever work on, right? Whether they're making an acquisition or you're helping them raise hundreds of millions of dollars of capital for their business so that they can expand or go invest in, some other project that they want to invest into, whatever that may be. Like that's a lot of responsibility, and the more responsibilities you get at a younger age, the more stressful it is, sure enough. But also the more you're going to learn, right? And you're essentially, the phrase they use, you're drinking from a fire hose, right? And then so some people, they can work for their entire career and not get to work on really cool projects like that, right? Like I remember when I was an analyst at Morgan Stanley, and then getting to, do an IPO for a client, getting to fly on a private jet with the CEO and CFO of this multi-billion-dollar company, and being one of the maybe handful of people on that jet, and being able to hear all their conversations between each other, amongst themselves, but also with my bosses, with my managing director, and so on and so forth. And then sitting in those investor meetings during the roadshow and hearing the way that they pitch their companies to these investors, and hearing the way that they answer the questions that the investors have for them, having a front row seat to that, that's something that most people won't ever get to experience, right? And so not only do you get to experience that, but you get to experience that as a 21-year-old, which really, like, not trying to exaggerate, but that's like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, right? So that's another reason. The next one I put here is the network, right? So obviously, you're going to meet a lot of your colleagues in banking, and then those people kind of become the foundation of your professional network, right? And that's important because, there's a saying, they say, your net worth is your network, right? Meaning it's not even so much about what you know, but the older you get and the longer you've been working, you realize like it's more about who you know, right? Knowing the right people in the right places will open up a ton of different doors or opportunities for you, right? Whether it's career opportunities or investment opportunities, whatever you name it. Like I've experienced all of those things, right? And so the quality of your network is super important. You want your network to be consisted of a bunch of, high caliber A players who are all going to, they might not all stay in banking, but they're all, even if they don't stay in banking, they're all going to go on and do probably really, really great things. They're all going to go on and be really, really successful, become executives at different companies, become investors, become entrepreneurs, whatever it may be, right? And you have all of that in your network, right? Like even to this day, I am still benefiting from the network that I developed from back in my banking days on almost a daily, if not weekly basis, right? So that's really an amazing thing to have, okay? And then the last thing, really, if I were to sum all of this up, I would just say, if I could choose one word, I would say freedom, right? You might say, well, how does investment banking give you freedom? Like you're working all the time. Yeah, I'm not saying that, literally investment banking gives you freedom, but I'm assuming, look, like regardless of whether you stay in banking or not, like the freedom that investment banking gives you is one, financial freedom, right? Because you're going to be making more money than probably over 95% of the people in the world, right? Possibly even over 99% of the people in the world, depending on how long you stay in it. Or even if you don't stay in banking and you leave and you go on and do other things, again, going back to my point at the beginning about the high pay and how that affects your earnings potential over time, you're probably going to still be better off than, again, 90+% of the people, right? So there's financial freedom and like not having to worry about finances or money and being able to do whatever you want without having to think about whether you can afford it or not. That's huge, right? Especially for those of you that maybe haven't had a lot of money growing up, like you understand how important that is. Like I myself was like that, right? The freedom of choice. Choice meaning like, for example, going back to the point about exit opportunities, when you come from investment banking, you get a lot of inbounds, like a lot of employers and companies out there that are fighting over you and wanting to hire you. So you can be choosy, right? You can be selective. You can be opportunistic about what opportunities you go after. Versus most people, when they look for jobs, they're the beggars. Beggars can't be choosers, right? Like companies aren't fighting over them. They have to go out and do outbound to all these businesses and submit their resume or whatever and ask for a job. Like I rarely, if ever, had to go out and beg for jobs throughout my career. It's always been people coming in and asking me if I want to work for them, or even if I do have to go out and ask for a job, I do that through my network, typically through my investment banking network, because I already know someone who's working at some of these other really, really successful companies that I'm interested in working for, right? So having a lot of people want you, having you yourself become a more desirable candidate, that gives you the freedom of choice, okay? And so you're not just taking whatever job you can get just so you can pay the bills or put food on the table for your family, right? You're going to choose the job that not only pays you well, but gives you the most satisfaction, and it's the most fulfilling for you. It makes you happy, right? And so that's the freedom of choice. And I said freedom of time, right? So freedom of time, this one's a little bit counterintuitive, but honestly, like the more successful you become financially and the more choices you have in terms of like, you know, careers and things like that, like, and the more you're able to only do the things that you want to do, not do the things you have to do, the more time you're going to free up, right? Like the sooner you become financially secure, the sooner you can retire. And when you retire, you can do whatever you want with your time, right? Also, the more money you have, the more investments you're going to be able to make. So you're not just trying to make money with your time, you're also making money with your money, right? This is why the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, because the poor people, they're making money with time. They work for a certain number of hours. They make, you know, a certain amount per hour, right? Like, oh, I make $15 an hour. I make $20 an hour. There's only 24 hours in a day. You can only work so many hours in a day, right? You can only make so much money then, right? The rich people, they have so much disposable income, so much excess income. They're investing that money. And so even when they're sleeping, their money is earning money for them, right? They're investing in real estate. They're investing in startups. They're investing in whatever. But that's a luxury that you can't have unless you have that excess capital, right? And then so that frees up more time. If your money is making money for you, you don't have to spend all of your time making money, right? You don't have to spend all of your time just trying to survive, right? So that's what I mean by the freedom of time. And, you know, ironically enough, even if you stay in banking, I was talking to one of my friends who actually stayed in banking this entire time and became a managing director, which is pretty rare because most people don't make it that far. And something that I was really surprised by, she was telling me that she actually doesn't work that much anymore. Like now that she's a managing director, she says she does like real work for maybe about 15 hours a week. Okay. Also because of COVID, they no longer need to travel for meetings and all that. She said a lot of the time before was spent traveling, like going back and forth to meetings, flying, going to airports, so on and so forth. And even with all the traveling and stuff, she said she was making maybe on a bad week working 50 to 60 hours on a bad week, right? But now that she cut out all the traveling, she says she works maybe like 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week, right, as a managing director. And she says you work less and you make a lot more the more higher up you go in banking. Of course, she paid her dues and she had to go through the analyst and associate and, you know, VP director, like the entire promotion track, right? And she paid her dues. But pretty much, she said after her second or third year as an associate, her work-life balance, she said, has been amazing, right? And so most people work a lot more than that and make a lot less money, right? So that's what I mean by the freedom of time. So regardless, at the end of the day, these are just some of the most common reasons that we've seen for why people want to get into investment banking. Obviously, this is not a comprehensive list. You might have some different reasons for yourself, and there's no right or wrong. By the way, some of these answers can be used in your investment banking interviews when they ask you why do you want to do investment banking, but some of these answers cannot be used as part of your interview answers. Okay, so you got to use your discretion. Maybe I'll make a separate video about that another day, but that'll be a separate topic for another time. But for now, just know that, look, these are some of the, I would say, top reasons for why people want to do banking. And obviously, this all sounds great, but that's why it's so hard to get in. That's why there's so many people who want to do this. That's why at all the top banks, there's over 100 applications for every job opening that they actually have, right? And so just because you want to have all these things doesn't mean you can get it. You're going to have to, put in the work, and, if you're getting stuck on things, get help on those things that you're stuck on so that you can become the most competitive candidate you can be, so that you can actually be, one of the top 1% who can have all of these things. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys, and that'll be it for this one. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're looking for more customized advice that's tailored for your specific situation, then I invite you to book a free strategy session with our team at the link below. We'll talk to you soon.